Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's breaking story comes from Eastern Europe, where the unexpected has happened. Belarus, once known as one of Vladimir Putin's most loyal allies, is now facing a seismic military revolt that could change everything. Reports from multiple sources confirm that parts of the Belarusian armed forces have turned against pro-Russian command structures, signaling a dramatic collapse of Putin's control over the country. For years, Belarus was considered the Kremlin's safest neighbor, a partner state, a buffer, and an extension of Moscow's geopolitical power. But as of this week, that image has shattered. What we are seeing unfold could mark the beginning of a historic power shift in the region. Across Belarus, military units are reportedly breaking from Russian coordination, taking positions under the Belarusian flag, and refusing orders linked to the Kremlin. Satellite footage and independent observers have documented convoys moving away from Russian supply lines and reorganizing independently. The once unified front between Minsk and Moscow now appears fractured beyond repair. Inside Belarus, this development has sent shockwaves through the political and military establishment. Soldiers and officers, who for years operated under joint Russian-Belarusian command, have suddenly declared their loyalty to Belarus alone. The slogan, "Our country, our command," has become the rallying cry spreading across bases, social media, and the streets. For President Alexander Lukashenko, the man who once stood shoulder to shoulder with Putin, this revolt has placed him in an impossible position. His leadership, already weakened by years of protests and economic pressure, is now under immense strain from within his own military. Lukashenko built his regime on loyalty to Moscow's vision of power and security, but now, that loyalty is being tested like never before. Insiders report that several senior officers have openly criticized Russian interference, accusing Moscow of treating Belarus as a pawn rather than a partner. These cracks in military discipline have evolved into open defiance. The events of the past 48 hours have stunned intelligence analysts around the world. Belarusian troops have reportedly seized control of multiple command centers once jointly operated with Russian forces. Some Russian advisors have been evacuated, while others have been detained for questioning. This is not just a symbolic act. It represents a real fracture in Russia's regional control network. The Russian military presence in Belarus, which once served as a launchpad for operations near Ukraine, now faces uncertainty and resistance. Putin's dream of a united Eastern Bloc under his influence may be collapsing faster than anyone anticipated. On the streets of Minsk, the atmosphere is tense but electric. Citizens have taken to the streets, not in chaos, but in cautious celebration. For the first time in decades, the sight of Belarusian flags waving without the Russian tricolour beside them carries deep symbolic meaning. People are chanting for independence, unity, and freedom from foreign control. Others are more fearful, aware that Moscow may not let this rebellion go unanswered. Still, there's an undeniable feeling that history is being written in real time. Internationally, the reaction has been swift. Western nations have expressed cautious support for Belarus's right to self-determination. The European Union released a statement saying, "We stand with the Belarusian people in their pursuit of sovereignty and peace." NATO intelligence flights have increased near Belarusian airspace to monitor developments. Though officials insist they are not preparing for intervention, the United States has called the revolt a potential turning point for Eastern Europe, warning Moscow against any military retaliation. Meanwhile, inside Russia, the Kremlin's silence speaks volumes. State media is downplaying the reports, labeling them as Western disinformation. Yet, online chatter and leaked military communications suggest that Putin's inner circle is alarmed. Losing Belarus would not only be a political humiliation, but also a strategic disaster. The collapse of Russian influence in Minsk would mean the loss of a key staging ground, a friendly border, and a vital pipeline of regional power. Analysts say this could embolden other nations still under heavy Russian sway to reconsider their alliances. Economically, the implications are severe. Belarus's infrastructure, trade routes, and energy supplies are deeply intertwined with Russia. Any political separation would trigger immediate disruptions. Russian state energy companies have already hinted at suspending fuel deliveries if Belarus continues its destabilizing actions. Yet for many Belarusians, this risk is worth taking. Years of dependence have brought little prosperity and constant subservience. Now, there's a chance to stand independently, even if it comes with short-term hardship. Inside military circles, morale appears to be shifting dramatically. Videos circulating online show Belarusian soldiers removing Russian patches and insignias, replacing them with national emblems. Some even address the camera, saying they are defending Belarusian soil for Belarusian people. These powerful moments have gone viral, inspiring thousands at home and abroad. It's not just a revolt, it's a statement of identity. This movement is not fueled by chaos or external manipulation. It's a grassroots awakening of a nation long overshadowed by its neighbors' power. Lukashenko's government, in response, has issued mixed messages. While he has not openly condemned the troops, he has urged discipline and unity within the armed forces. His speeches now emphasize Belarusian sovereignty and independent command, a noticeable shift from his usual pro-Moscow rhetoric. Observers suggest that he's trying to avoid direct confrontation with either side, balancing between appeasing Russia and recognizing the growing independence sentiment at home. But such balancing acts rarely last long. The situation is developing too quickly for neutrality. Across the border, Russia's military logistics have begun to feel the strain. Supply routes that once moved seamlessly through Belarus are now disrupted. Reports indicate that Moscow has recalled some of its military advisors and is reinforcing border units in case the revolt spreads. Cyber operations have reportedly intensified, with Belarusian communication networks facing a wave of interference believed to originate from Russian sources. Despite these pressures, Belarusian forces continue to hold their ground, asserting control over their own command structures. Global analysts describe the unfolding situation as a quiet revolution. Unlike the mass uprisings of the past, this movement is being led by disciplined, organized military units. Its aim isn't chaos, it's sovereignty, and that makes it even more threatening to Putin's long-term strategy. The Kremlin has built its power on the perception that its influence over its neighbors is unshakable. Belarus's revolt shatters that illusion. If one ally can stand up, others might follow. This is not just about Belarus. It's about the crumbling of a system of control that has defined post-Soviet geopolitics for decades. In Belarusian towns and cities, ordinary citizens are preparing for uncertainty. Shelters are being stocked, communication lines are being secured, and volunteers are organizing community support groups. But despite the fear, there's also pride. People are talking openly about independence, democracy, and self-rule, ideas that once felt too dangerous to mention. Across Europe, Belarusian exiles are rallying in support, waving their national flag in cities like Warsaw, Vilnius, and Prague. The story of Belarus is becoming the story of courage in the face of pressure. A small nation standing up to a powerful neighbor, soldiers refusing to be instruments of another country's ambitions, and a people rediscovering their identity after years of suppression. The coming weeks will determine whether this movement leads to full independence or faces brutal retaliation. Either way, the message is clear. The days of blind obedience to Moscow may be ending. As the world watches, one thing is certain. This revolt has already changed the conversation about Eastern Europe's future. The myth of Putin's total control is fading. His dream of regional dominance is unraveling, piece by piece. What began as a quiet act of military dissent in Belarus has now become a global headline, a symbol of defiance, and perhaps the spark of a larger transformation. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for continuous updates on this historic story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to stay informed on the latest global developments. The world is changing fast, and stories like this remind us that even the smallest nations can make the biggest impact when they choose freedom over fear.